Hello, everyone. Welcome to another happy hour with me. My name is Dr. Bridget Young. I am a doctor of perinatal nutrition and founder of babyformulaexpert.com. And I come to you ish weekly to talk about an infant feeding topic. And today I'm going to be talking about something that I've been waiting to talk about for weeks, and that is Gentlease Enspire, Enfamil's new formula, which is in the Gentlease line of formulas, Gentlease Enspire. My children are in bed, and so I am having a little glass of boxed wine, so hopefully we can make it through this uninterrupted. I mean, I really hope, because that would mean someone's out of bed. I'm freshly showered with wet hair, so I've really, done a lot to prepare for this. So Gentlease Enspire, it's on the market. You can buy it at Target. I think currently only at Target, but it's been out for a couple of weeks at Target. There is zero information about it online. It's not even on Enfamil's website yet. I called the company and they couldn't share the list of ingredients with me despite it being at Target. So today I actually drove to Target, looked at it in person, which is how I'm able to talk to you about what is in it. So today, what I would like to do for all my Enfamil formula feeders out there is talk to you about, what makes the Inspire part in Gentlease Enspire. And then, of course, I think answer the biggest question is, how is it different? And then the second question, should you switch if you're using one of the other Gentlease formulas? So let's dive right in. So Gentlease currently comes in, I'm looking at my notes, I have four different forms. So Gentlease is Enfamil's partially hydrolyzed formula. They actually have two. Gentlease is their main partially hydrolyzed formula. It's the purple can. So partially hydrolyzed means the proteins are pre-digested or broken down a little bit, so they are smaller in size. Gentlease and Reguline, which is Enfamil's other partially hydrolyzed formula, are unique because they are a partially hydrolyzed blend of whey and casein together. This is different than Similac or Gerber's partially hydrolyzed formulas, which are partially hydrolyzed just whey. I always say it's not like one's better or worse. It's nice to have options because some babies just do better on one versus the other. That's sort of a little bit of a side. So that's what Gentlease is. It's a partially hydrolyzed blend of whey and casein, and it is a very lactose-reduced formula, 80% lactose reduced. So that means the carbohydrate source is 80% corn syrup solids, 20% lactose. That's like the bare bones of what all Gentlease. So you can get Gentlease Basic. That doesn't have any fancy words with it, and that's what you're getting. The next one up is Gentlease Premium. And what they've done with Premium is taken the bare bones Gentlease and added about 4 times as much inositol. I have a video about each of these, so this is just your review. My general opinion is like, meh, I don't really care that much. So that's Premium. The next one is NeuroPro. So every time we move up, we're taking the previous formula and adding a little bit more. So basically NeuroPro is Enfamil Premium plus milk fat globule membrane. Say that 20 times fast. You'll see it as MFGM, milk fat globule membrane, on the can. I'm going to try to keep this brief because, again, I have videos on each of these individual things. So in short, milk fat globule membrane are proteins that surround the milk fat globule. Think about a globule like a little ball of fat, kind of like how if you put oil in water, you'll see it in droplets. Not really, but you can visualize it that way. The proteins that surround that ball of fat are the membrane, the milk fat globule membrane. And some of those proteins do really cool things for the infant. It's very well studied. So they call it NeuroPro. Again, I have a whole video because one of the big findings that they found in really well done research studies was that kiddos who are randomized to have this very similar like NeuroPro type of formula with milk fat globule membrane performed better on baby IQ tests at 12 months. Not like you're going to college versus not perform better, but enough statistically significant. And it also provided some immune protective benefits. Enfamil's really gone after the IQ or NeuroPro marketing. So that's what makes NeuroPro, milk fat globule membrane. Inspire is like the coup d'etat. So previously we only had just Enfamil Inspire, which was an intact protein. Now we have Gentlease Enspire, which is basically Gentlease NeuroPro, but we've added another thing, which is lactoferrin. Lactoferrin is a protein that's found in really high concentrations. Everything's relative when you talk about breast milk. Pretty high concentrations in breast milk, and it provides a lot of immunoprotective effects to the baby through various different ways. So it doesn't just do one thing, it does several different things, all of which help protect the baby from infection. So, and they have actually, of course, lactoferrin's been studied in formula for years and years. It's probably one of the most studied sexy extras, I call it. So in studies of randomized controlled trials, they have shown that providing lactoferrin to exclusively formula-fed infants early in life provides them immune protection that in general, I'm really summarizing here, they get sick less often, which is pretty awesome because we know formula-fed babies get sick more often than breastfed babies. Particularly, they get less ear infections, which is another thing that's really a common plague for otherwise healthy babies. So like milk-fat globule membrane and lactoferrin are pretty dang awesome stuff, but they're not all that matters. So I want to present you the information, but don't want you to go crazy because you have to take this information and apply it to your own little kiddo. So that's what makes Inspire. So when we're talking about Gentlease Enspire, if you actually compare them ingredient for ingredient on the nutrition label, this is the difference between Gentlease NeuroPro, which has been out for a while, and the new Gentlease Enspire. There's only 3 differences. The one giant one, which we just discussed, is of course Inspire adds lactoferrin. And then the 2 are so minor, I don't want to say anything, but I pride myself on being thorough. Gentlease Enspire has soy lecithin, which is an emulsifier. So it's important for preserving the texture, the creaminess of formula, which sounds superfluous, but is a very big deal because, you know, too watery, babies choke, too thick, they can't swallow it. So it's a big deal. Emulsifiers are a big deal to have in formula. I don't think this difference is particularly a big deal because both formulas have soy oil. So it's not like adding soy lecithin all of a sudden is exposing you to a lot of soy protein, and it's a very minor ingredient. So I would otherwise just ignore it. The other thing that is, again, totally worth ignoring is that the Inspire has 10 IUs more of vitamin D. This is like baby being outside in the sun for 15 seconds. Don't quote me on that. I don't know exactly what it's like. It's a very, very, very tiny amount. The drops that you would give a baby are 200 IUs for a daily dose. So this is, again, not really worth mentioning. So basically, the only difference between NeuroPro and Inspire, significant, is this lactoferrin. So if you are considering a switch, the good news is your baby should transition well. Still do a little mixing. I never recommend anybody do it cold turkey, but otherwise the main ingredients, you know, the 95% of the formula is the same. So your baby should tolerate it very well if you've been on a previous version of Gentlease. So that's it for the differences. I see comments coming in and I will answer them at the end because I don't want to lose my train of thought, basically. Thank you for hanging with me. So the bigger question, which I'm sure you're thinking is, should you switch? And I cannot answer that for you. I'm going to give you the things to think about. And if you were sitting with me, the things that we would discuss about your individual family, and then hopefully you can incorporate that and make a really good decision for yourself. The first thing, which has nothing to do with nutrition, this is an effing expensive formula. It is $40 a can. That is a lot of money. If you have like a 1-month-old baby and you're exclusively formula, I should have done this math. I will do it because I am just dying to know now. If you have a really young baby and you're exclusively formula feeding and you're looking at using this for, you know, 10 to 12 months, it is going to be a big drain on your wallet. So if you, and I know everyone's like, oh, I always want to give my baby the best, cost doesn't matter. And we all sort of think that way, but I always like to remind parents, the number one stress in marriages, so totally aside whether or not they have children, is financial issues. So if the formula you choose places a financial burden on your family that causes stress in any kind of way, I consider that as part of the baby's health. Particularly babies are so connected to their mothers when they're newborns, stress in the home, that kind of a thing. You know, if you're fighting with your partner about this and it detracts from you being able to be all lovey-dovey and ooey-gooey in your baby's eyes, that's a real thing. So that's as far as I'm going to get. The cost is very significant and is not something that should be overlooked. So that's one that has nothing to do with nutrition. The next big thing is relevant to Enspire particularly, but any of these sexy extra formulas. And that is everything that's in formula has been very, very well researched. So all these sexy extras, so milk fat globule membrane, lactoferrin, other ones you hear about are the human milk oligosaccharides, inositol, DHA, all these things that are used in marketing a lot. They've all been researched really well, so they're perfectly safe. But when we're talking about milk fat globule membrane and lactoferrin specifically, the research that is done is in the context of exclusive formula feeding. And then when you feed this one particular formula from either birth or up till about 1 month of age to about 6 months of age, that's the exposure time that they usually study. And then we look for differences in outcomes. We being researchers look for differences in outcomes. This is a really important point because this is not how the average American baby is fed. Usually there's some breast milk in there somewhere. Either you started breastfeeding, you're still providing a little breast milk. Very few babies who are on formula are just on one formula ever. They do great and they stay on it forever. Most families have to bounce around a little bit before they find the perfect blend. The point is, all of the benefits that are, you know, really true benefits that are observed in research are from this specific context where a baby has been exposed to this single formula with no breast milk for, I'll say, at least 5 months, sometimes a full 6 months. And then they measure outcomes either at 6 months, sometimes up to a year, but it's that kind of intense exposure. So if that is not you, basically, if you are not a parent holding a tiny freshling baby who's a month, I wish I was holding a month-old baby right now, who's a month or younger, and you're planning on exclusively formula feeding this baby, there is no guarantee that these results apply to your baby. Now, science, we think we know the mechanism of how lactoferrin protects the immune system, how milk fat globule membrane helps our little ones' brains develop, but that has not been studied. So you can't just say, and if you look at the marketing, it's very carefully worded. You can't just say, like, for example, are you using this as a top-off bottle? Are you 50-50 with breast milk? Are you mostly formula but significant breast milk? Is your baby 8 months old? I usually say this, if your baby's older than 6 months old, I don't know if any of this research is applicable to you at all, because your baby is past a lot of critical windows of development. They're having solid foods, which totally changes how their digestive tract kind of looks, different microbiome, it's more mature, etc. So we have really no idea if some of these really exciting benefits are really applicable to you. So I would go ahead and say, if this formula seems quite expensive to you and your baby's over 6 months old, mama, don't worry about it. It's fine. It's not worth the money. That is my opinion. And if you are, so again, the people who may consider switching are in the following category. Your baby, we could even stretch it to say 2 months. Your baby is under 2 months old. You are exclusively formula feeding, or almost exclusively formula feeding. Again, the research is only exclusively formula, but if we expand that to be, you know, if you would consider your baby majority formula fed with just a little bit of breast milk, and your baby needs a partially hydrolyzed formula, then it might be worth considering if and only if your family is in a financial position to accept the long-term cost of using this formula over the next 10 months, which again is very significant. So it's a discussion you need to have with your partner. So I really hope that is helpful and I hope it makes sense. And then, so take this information and then trust your gut. So I don't want to dissuade anyone either way. It's not like if you have an 8-month baby, you shouldn't try this formula, because again, we think we know how it works, but it just hasn't been studied, so there's no guarantee. So read the papers yourself. I always encourage people to do that. But that's my take on it. So I really hope that is helpful. The punchline is, consider where your baby is relevant to how the research on these super sexy things have been studied. So whether or not we even think the benefits are applicable to the potential benefits are applicable to your baby, and then weigh that against the dramatically increased cost. Now, I'm going to get on my soapbox for a minute and say, it really sucks that this formula is so expensive. The research, I mean, I'm a research nerd, and the research is really cool. In a perfect world, we would be adding, it would be required that these things would be added to all formulas, and somehow we would find a way to make them more affordable to everyone. It's really terrible that they're so expensive, and Enfamil doesn't take this marketing stance, so I don't mean this to be a slash on them, but there's this underlying message of, if you're a good parent, you pay more, which is so not cool and so not true. And so I want to take a moment to put that out of your mind. How much you spend on your formula has nothing to do with your parenting. So take a deep breath, give yourself some grace, and know that you're doing your best. And this is not a black and white, this is better because it costs more thing. So I hope that is really helpful. If you're watching this and that was helpful, get off and go to bed. You should probably be in bed anyway. I'm going to read some of the comments and see if I can answer them. You know, sometimes the comments disappear. Oops, so I lost some. If I don't answer your question, I will get to it after I hang up. So here are some. How is this different from regular Inspire? Awesome question. It's really different from regular Inspire. So both Inspires, regular Inspire and Gentlease Enspire, have the two sexy extras. They both have milk, fat, globule membrane, and lactoferrin. The differences are in the bulk of the ingredients, the 95% of the ingredients. The regular Inspire is basically Enfamil Infant with these two sexy things added. Enfamil Infant is an intact protein formula, big protein. So it's a standard formula, but that's very different than Gentlease. And it's a 60% whey, 40% casein blend. That's the protein. The carbohydrate is a 100% lactose. So it's a very standard, great. That's a great starter formula. Gentlease, which is why it's marketed like gentle for babies who are having issues, is a partially hydrolyzed formula. So the protein is very different. They still start with 60% whey, 40% casein, but the proteins are partially hydrolyzed, which you can think of as like broken in half. They're broken up into smaller pieces, so smaller proteins that are more in the realm of the size of breast milk proteins. Humans make milk for their babies with smaller proteins than cows make for their babies, bigger proteins. And then the carbohydrate in Gentlease is also different. It's very lactose reduced. So the carbohydrate in Gentlease is 80% corn syrup solids, which will metabolize to glucose, and 20% lactose. So the reason they call it Gentlease is they've done two things that will hopefully help babies who are having digestive issues. They've broken up the proteins and they've taken out a bunch of the lactose and replaced it with a carbohydrate source that is easier to digest for some babies. So really different, awesome question. I should have dwelt a little more on that in the beginning. I read through this. Oh my gosh, Kendall, you're so cute. I'm summarizing your points. I really didn't get what the difference was, but assumed Inspire was better, so I got it once I saw the target. Everybody does, because we live in America, which is a capitalist society, and usually more money means better. So it may or may not be better. It's better in that lactoferrin is pretty awesome, but again, I would harp on the fact that depending on the age of your baby, it may not even be relevant at all. Again, if your baby is 11 months old, like what's 1 month of extra lactoferrin going to do for them? I would hesitate to say probably not that much. My opinion. So you could save a bunch of that money and buy a couple extra books to read to your baby, and it probably would go in terms of their long-term development. Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. So there are a bunch of other comments that went by and I can't scroll back. So sorry, I'll look at some comments. Okay, speaking of bedtime, it is totally my bedtime. So I really hope that is helpful. Share this with someone who's feeding Gentlease. I'm looking at my picture. I'm like, I don't want to ask anyone to share this because I'm looking a little bit of a hot mess. But if the information will be helpful, share it with a mom you know who is considering Gentlease. And again, I wouldn't care as much about this if it weren't so dang expensive. My biggest concern is that a lot of families are going to want to switch, and the repercussions of the financial strain this puts on their family is going to be more detrimental than any potential biological health benefit the baby may receive. So again, I hope that's really helpful. If I can be of help, oh, thank you, he's 5 months tomorrow. Okay, no, he's 5 months. Okay, so go back and listen. it may or may not be super relevant, especially if he's been on NeuroPro. I would stick with the NeuroPro. If this is going to be a big burden on your family, going from 5 to 12 months on the Enspire, I personally, for my kid, would probably skip it. Oh, here's something else before you know. Kind of think about how your baby is. Has your baby been perfectly healthy and without huge issues? Then this tiny potential, maybe non-existent immune benefit might not be relevant to them. If your baby's been plagued with chronic ear infections and they're 3 months old, so they're past with a hump where I said of 2 months, but ear infections particularly are reduced with lactoferrin, maybe it's worth it to try it for a couple of months to see if you can avoid another round of antibiotics. So that's another example of thinking about the research individually and your individual little one. I'm going to sign out. If I can be of help to your family, head over to the website. I work with families one-on-one who are having formula tolerance issues, and it would be my joy to try to help you. So have a wonderful, wonderful week. If you have another question or something else in the comments, if you find Enspire somewhere besides Target, it will be rolling out eventually, but if you found it somewhere else, put it in the comments so other parents can see, and I will talk to you guys later. Thank you so much. Thank you for being patient with me getting this together, and I'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.